Okay, you've all read the title of the video, so you all know why you're here. Fear. We all have it, we all feel it. Unless you have a freak accident at work where you hit your head so hard that you damage your amygdala, or you're born with an extremely rare genetic condition that leaves your amygdala shriveled up and useless, just like Joe Biden. The amygdala, by the way, is basically a very old part of the brain that is, in layman's terms, the fear centre. Although it does much more than that, but I'm not a brain surgeon, so I'm not learning every other aspect of its functionality just for this video. And cortisol is a neurochemical most widely associated with negative emotions like stress and anxiety. Cortisol too has much more functions than just producing negative emotions, but there's no point getting into that here either. Basically, all you need to know right now is amygdala equals fear centre and cortisol equals negative emotions chemical. But we can't all be lucky enough to experience traumatic brain injuries and rare genetic conditions, unfortunately. So for those of us non-freaks who still have our amygdalas intact, or those of us who've been stressed out for so long that our amygdala has gone from the size of an almond to the size of a baseball, while your hippocampus degrades to the point it has about as much memory capacity as a PS2 memory card, we all must learn to deal with and face our fears. If we don't, we'll remain weak and perpetually stuck in our comfort zones. And I'm definitely no different. I have tons of fears, and I still avoid a lot of them to this day. Some of my fears include things like rejection, being awkward, conversing with hot girls, giant spiders, the military might of China and Russia joining together, male pattern baldness, heights, becoming a target of the deep state, totalitarianism, the list goes on. But I've learned that the only way to get over any of these fears is to face them. Running away from your fears just makes the fear stronger, and it makes the temptation to avoid the thing you're afraid of stronger too, and that makes you weaker. The good news is, you don't have to be like that, and neither do I. So what actually is fear? Fear is a physiological response where your amygdala is activated during times when you feel things like stress, anxiety, anger, and any other kind of negative emotion, which then causes a chain reaction in the brain and body, which then causes the production of cortisol that then circulates through your body. This sets your body up to feel those negative emotions. We evolved this physiological process as cavemen to keep us safe from bodily harm, be that from predators like bears, tigers, extraterrestrial beings that came down and genetically altered our primeval ancestors, and any other number of our primeval rivals. It also would have been pretty good at keeping us from running off cliffs and burning our hands in fire. But times have changed since then, and most of us don't have to worry about being eaten by bears and tigers, yet we still have these fear responses, and while it still very much serves its purpose today, it also can work against our best interests and stop us from growing and moving forward in life. Let me give you some examples. Example 1. You have a job interview, and on the day of the interview, building up to it, you become anxious and worried. You start fixating about things in your head. What if I don't get the job? What if I make myself look like an idiot? What if I can't think of anything to say? What if they ask me about all the previous jobs I lied about on my resume? These are just some of the things that race through your head while you anxiously prepare for your interview. But why are you actually scared? You're just going to a place to sit in a room with someone and talk for like 15 minutes. Your life isn't in danger, you won't be physically hurt, you're not going to jail, so why the fear? It's basically because most of your brain is working off of ancient hardware that is wired to detect any kind of threat to you, and it isn't very effective at deciding what is and isn't a real threat in the modern world. So all those ancient parts of your brain that are designed for threat detection start firing off because you're meeting a new person, which, back in the day in caveman times, could have meant death or violence, and you're facing potential rejection, which also could have meant death back in caveman times. And so you then become anxious and worried about the interview because your primal brain seriously thinks you're at risk. But odds are, you aren't. Example 2. Imagine you're hanging out with a girl you really like a lot, and you're hitting it off with her. Now imagine you're both sitting in a car on the beach, and while you're hitting it off, she starts touching your arm and making jokes about your man juice on her pillow that she also has in the car. Now imagine that you have one of those moments where you're both looking at each other, the eye contact is intense, and the tension gets pretty high. You know what I mean. If you don't, it's fine. If you're watching videos like these, you will eventually. Then you get excited, if you know what I mean again. And then you don't make a move, because you're worried that you don't know what you're doing anymore because it's been so long since you've been laid and you don't want to have an awkward situation where you have to explain that to the girl you really like. Then imagine the moment passes, the mood is killed, and the opportunity is wasted. That definitely was just a hypothetical scenario I made up, and not a very real experience of mine that still haunts me to this day and shatters my soul when I think about it for too long. Example 3. You see a homeless dude on the street with a guitar case full of coins, and you get the urge to take it. But your fear of being stabbed with a syringe full of meth and fentanyl deters you. You then walk by, not grabbing a single cent of his money that you're rightly entitled to. And eventually, you've walked so far away from your target that it would be a waste of time and effort to run back and take the money. Therefore, the opportunity is wasted and you missed out on getting some easy money. The last example was a joke, but you get the idea. The point is, letting fear stop you from doing things you want to do sucks, and it can set you up for big time regrets that will bother you forever, or at least years after the fact. So what can be done about it? The first thing is to realise what fear actually is, and how a lot of the time it's just your ancient threat detecting brain getting confused because it wasn't evolved for the environment we all exist in today. That's why I gave the first example of the job interview, because it perfectly demonstrates how those old parts of your brain get jacked up and cause fear within you over something that's not really dangerous at all. The second thing I think is to understand this great point from a book I'm reading right now called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. What she says in this book is basically, whatever fear we have, what lies at the root of that fear is the assumption that we can't handle the outcome of the thing that we're afraid of. Scared of a job interview? You're really scared you can't handle being turned down and not getting the job. Scared of talking to a girl? You're really scared of getting rejected and feeling or looking like an idiot. Scared of talking to new people? You're also scared of being rejected and not accepted. This can be applied to basically every fear we have in the modern world. But the thing is, you really can handle the outcomes of any scenario, you just don't know it yet. You can handle not getting that job, you can handle getting rejected by that girl, if that even happens, which it might not, and you can handle talking to new people and being brushed off. You can handle all these things and so much more. Once you understand that, and you really know that, you will be less worried and anxious, and be more willing to take risks that could lead to positive outcomes. The third thing is to realise whatever fear you have is never going to go away on its own. You're not going to wake up one day and all of a sudden not be afraid of whatever you're afraid of. You're not going to all of a sudden feel confident enough to talk to girls if you don't feel confident right now. And you're not going to all of a sudden feel comfortable interacting with new people if you don't currently feel comfortable interacting with new people. The only way you're going to not be afraid to talk to girls, or you're not going to be afraid to talk to new people, is if you start doing it, now. This is another idea from Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway that I find extremely insightful. The idea is basically, you do the thing you're afraid of, and then confidence will come. If you're not confident with girls, like I definitely am not, part of the reason you're not confident with girls is because you barely talk to them. And because you barely talk to them, you're not going to be confident talking to them because you have very little experience doing it. So what's the solution? It's not waiting for that perfect moment where you suddenly feel confident out of nowhere and become this mega chad. Hell no. The solution is to feel the fear and do it anyway. You need to go out there, face your fear of rejection and embarrassment, push through that fear, and start talking to girls. And that's the only way you'll become confident with anything in life. You'll likely make mistakes along the way, sure, but if you learn from those mistakes and you build upon them, eventually you will become confident in whatever area you're lacking in. At the start, you'll be scared, make no mistake, but once you face whatever you're afraid of, you will realise you're capable of handling the situation no matter the outcome. Feeling confident doesn't come before doing the thing you're afraid of. Doing the thing you're afraid of comes before feeling confident. And you won't feel confident enough to do the thing you're afraid of until you've done the thing you're afraid of. The easiest example of this, despite how slightly messed up it might sound, is how I faced my fear of spiders and became braver because of it. So let me set the scene. It was a warm summer's night. It's about 4 AM. I get up out of bed to go and lift a shirt off the ground for some reason, and underneath that shirt was a moderately sized huntsman spider. Now up until this point, I had a significant fear of spiders. Both my mother and father had it, and so I had it 10 times worse. I saw it and froze. What the hell am I going to do? I asked myself. I can't get anyone else to get it because it's 4 AM and everyone's asleep. I can't just leave it there because how the hell am I going to sleep? I can't bring myself to kill it because I just don't want to go anywhere near it. So what the hell did I do? I stood in my room, all jacked up and worried, fixating on what I was supposed to do. And then I remembered what I'd heard Jordan Peterson say, face your fears and you will get stronger. So remembering that, I eventually summoned up the courage and stomped that goddamn spider. My adrenaline levels would have been insane at that moment, but then it got an even bigger spike because the spider got back up and literally started scurrying towards me. So I had to stomp it a few more times and it was eventually dead. Now a few years later, spiders still make me uncomfortable, sure, but I'm far less afraid of them than I used to be and I can handle them with ease now. This is a perfect example of how facing my own fears made me stronger. Side note, I know this story might make me sound cruel or something, but I'm honestly not. They just freak me out, and I'm not going to pick them up and put them outside just so they can crawl back into my room so I can have the same ordeal all over again. So squashing them is my only option. But the basic idea is true. If you face what you're afraid of, you will get stronger. That story I just gave is evidence of that. Possibly semi-schizophrenic psychology shaman Carl Jung had a similar idea. He had a saying, where your fear is, there is your task. There is real truth to this statement, much like everything else Jung spoke and wrote about. I've found it's true with everything in modern life, within reason of course. If, however, your fear is jumping off a 30-storey building, running into peak hour traffic, charging a gorilla, or fighting John Jones, then it would be wise to not face that fear. Just about everything else that you face in life, however, should be approached with this idea in mind. But there is a catch to all of this. You have to willingly face the fear. You can't be forced into it. When you willingly face whatever you're afraid of, your body produces more rewards-based chemicals like dopamine. Whereas when you're forced into facing something you're afraid of, your body produces more negative emotions-based chemicals like cortisol. So never try to force someone to face their fears. It always must be voluntary. Also, I just quickly thought I'd mention this breathing method that I've found because of Andrew Huberman called the physiological sigh. It's basically where you take one really deep breath in through your nose, then another really quick breath through your nose so your lungs are basically full, and then you deep exhale through your mouth. This is the closest thing to a real life hack I've come across that genuinely calms you down when you're stressed. I can't remember all the details of how it works, or what mechanisms are activated in the brain and body when you do it, but it definitely works, so give it a try the next time you're stressed. All the ideas I've discussed in this video have helped me alleviate my own anxiety and fear, but I definitely haven't mastered any of these practices, and I still have to deal with fear and make myself summon up the courage to face whatever I'm afraid of. But I've still got a long way to go, and I just don't want to come off like I've mastered all these concepts. I'm still intimidated by pretty women, I still get anxious talking to new people and trying to start conversations, I still get nervous, anxious and worried. But I'm getting better, slowly but surely. I'm becoming more confident to talk to people, I'm becoming less afraid of the women I find attractive, and my negative emotions are becoming less intense and frequent. And these ideas, while very solid and helpful, are hard to remember, and even harder to effectively implement when you're feeling fear. It always sounds easier when it's written down or talked about in a video like this, but it's important to remember that even if you have all this knowledge, you're still likely going to be worried and anxious at times, and you're still going to struggle to be courageous enough to face your fears. But that's alright, because we're human. These emotions are natural, but it's also important to remember that you can get better at dealing with your fears. You can get stronger and braver. It just takes time and a lot of effort and a lot of bravery. These ideas make it easier to do all those things though. But anyway, that's about all I wanted to say, so I hope this video helped you with whatever you might be going through, and I hope you got something valuable out of this video. I'm kind of sick of talking into my headphone mic like some kind of schizophrenic, so yeah. Like the video if you liked it, and thanks for watching.